Hey everybody, it's that time again, that time to live the dream. This is the Livin The Dream video podcast. I'm Rishi Barran with the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. This is episode number 32, and when I got a Boston Celtics fan in the house, can't go with Magic Johnson, got to go with Kevin McHale version of this episode today. We got KJ Doyle from KFDA TV, the sports director there in Amarillo, Texas. KJ, thanks for spending the morning with us today.
Well, since you mentioned the Celtics fan thing, I wasn't gonna reveal the curtain too much, but obviously it is the morning. For me, I don't start work for a few more hours, so I guess I can not feel too bad about revealing. I'm still wearing my Celtics pajamas down here on the bottom, so I wasn't gonna put that on camera. But since you said the Celtics fan thing, I guess it's okay just to throw that out there.
Well, the way they're playing these days, KJ, you can wear whatever you want because it's working for them. And what you've been doing in the industry since graduation has been working for you. We'll get into the path to get to Full Sail and beyond to your current role, which you're taking names down there in Texas and doing an amazing job. But where did the dream of being a sportscaster start for you?
I think it somewhat started with the Celtics, probably. I've talked about it a lot, but just being with my grandmother and watching those games growing up, and she would come over and take care of us after school and cook dinner and play games with us and everything. And then she'd finally go home for the day to rest, and I would just call her up as soon as she got in the door and stay on the phone with her for the first half of Celtics games. And we would just talk and listen to Tommy Heinsohn and Mike Gorman, who is actually going to be retiring after this year. We would just hear them on the call and watch the game along with them. And those were the moments that I really, started to grow an attachment to it and feel like that this was what I wanted to do.
Those sports team bonds with family, right? Everybody has different ways to connect with people, but I think there's something really special about those homegrown roots of loving a sports team that came from a family member. How did that guide your relationships early in life through sports?
I think, it was just something that was pretty special between me and her. There were definitely moments with my dad too, especially, now when I am able to go back in the fall and we're able to watch a Patriots game. I really feel like I value those moments and those times more than I used to, knowing that, I don't get so many of those anymore, just being so far away. So I think that it gave me a good connection with her, and just another thing to connect with her on. And my mother and her siblings had told me that she would actually she was a huge Celtics fan, but she would not watch the Celtics, or she wasn't watching the Celtics for a long period of time because her husband just didn't want her watching that for whatever reason. They had a thing where he maybe for whatever reason just didn't want her to have it on, whether it was because he didn't want to watch it or he wanted to watch something else, I'm not sure. But the fact that I wanted to watch it, with her and along with her, like on the phone especially, kind of opened the door for him to just kind of let that go and her to be able to watch it. So I think that that was something that I didn't, fully recognize, obviously as a child, but something you hear after the fact and you think about how maybe that positively impacted her and kind of helped her do what she wanted to do, and kind of be able to appreciate something that she's passionate about and give her the avenue to do that. So that was something. It was just something I look back on and can still have fond memories of. And I think that the aspect of Mike Gorman and Tommy Heinsohn, how it ties into just all of it and working in the industry in general. I mean, they're part of those moments for me, those two guys and their voices. And I think that that's what's special about this industry to an extent, is what you can open up for other people to appreciate, and what you in kind of telling a story, telling someone's story, and kind of doing it in a way that's done well, you can impact the lives of so many people positively by giving them that ability to appreciate, whether it's someone they know or just a sport they love with someone they know. I think that's something that's really special.
You spent your early years in New Hampshire during arguably one of the best times ever to be a New
Yeah.
England sports fans. The Patriots are winning Super Bowls left and right. The Red Sox, who for many people's lifetimes did not win any World Series, won several during years. Obviously,
Yeah.
we already chronicled your love of the Boston Celtics, who've had some really good teams. How did that success from those sports teams add to that early fanaticism?
I think that it definitely helped. I mean, it was something at school that we were all talking about. We were always talking about it, and it helped me form friendships. And I think that any sports fan would tell you it's more fun to follow your teams when they're winning. So I think that it definitely did increase how much I was invested in the teams and everything like that. But I think, it just kind of it added that extra layer of emotion and that an extra layer of emotional attachment to the teams and to sports in general, and kind of, continuing to make it something that was imprinted on my soul as, just something that I knew I needed to be a big part of my life. And it didn't it certainly, it didn't make it easy to chase that and to try to, make sure, okay, I like this needs to be something I'm involved in. But that's kind of the feeling that I had, and the feelings that I had, going into school and going into the industry.
Not only did you have the superstar players, your Tom Brady's, your Big Poppies, your Paul Pierce's, all that, but growing up following Boston sports, you had a lot of the stars of the media industry that were writing columns and going on the air and all kinds. I mean, I covered the Red Sox in spring training when I worked in Fort Myers, and I was amazed by how many different media outlets covered them. Seeing these kind of superstars in the industry early on, what did you take from what you saw them produce in terms of sports content?
It's interesting. I don't know if there are things that I took specifically, like if there's something like I can say, like, I like the way that, so and so did this, and I like the way that so and so did that. But I think that I absorbed so much content that it sort of helped me in a just kind of, I forget what the word exactly is, but just in consuming it, I kind of absorbed it, and that kind of helped me in maybe a non-direct kind of way. So they're the most popular radio show in Boston. I would come home every day as a middle schooler, and I would just turn it on, and I would watch it for 4 hours. And I would, even the national stuff, I would turn on Sports Nation with Michelle Beadle and Colin Cowherd, and I'd watch that every day. And even now, once they started doing the radio show and then putting it into podcast form after the fact, they post this 4-hour show, and I would just listen to every hour every day. And I think a lot of people probably do that. There's probably a good amount of people that do that, but there's probably not that same percentage that are actively working to work in the industry at the same time. So I think just consuming that content and kind of paying special attention to how they were presenting it, just kind of helped me understand better when I'm in those situations myself, how to talk and how to act in a way that is captivating.
That's KJ Doyle, sports director at News Channel 10 in Amarillo, Texas. KJ, when did you start churning the wheels in your head from intaking the content and listening to it to actually thinking, hey, this might be something that I can do?
I think when I just remember being like 10, 11 years old and being on the basketball court. And, I think it was something like a few of my friends were playing, and, I wasn't picked for a game and I was just sitting on the sideline during recess, and I was thinking, well, I don't think I'm making it to the NBA if I can't make it onto the recess court. So I was thinking, but maybe I can cover the NBA. And that's kind of when I started thinking that that's what I wanted to do at an early age. And then, it was really towards the end of high school, once high school was over, I wasn't quite going to college immediately after high school. And I knew that I just wanted to do something. I wanted to write or, cover sports in some sort of way. So I said, all right, well, I'm not doing college right now and I'm not doing this XYZ. So let me just start writing. So I just wrote one article. I think it was something like 5 big predictions for the NBA season. I probably had something stupid in there like Emmanuel Mudiay will be the next star point guard, for the NBA or something like that. But I wrote it and I just sent it to a few of my friends on like a WordPress, and one of my friends said, "Hey, my cousin's starting this blog, Guy Boston Sports. He's been doing it for 3 months. Would you want to just do that with him?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I just jumped in doing it with him, and we had great kind of working relationship in that regard, and built it up and built it up, and I just kept getting more and more experience from it. And uh, I was doing it mostly for free, so that wasn't necessarily maybe the greatest aspect of it, not making money with it, but it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't really care at the time that I wasn't making money because no one would probably pay me to do it at that point. So I just wanted to do it because I liked it. And, I think that the experience I got was really invaluable because as I kept, working my way up, I started to, write articles, do podcasts, do video content, and I would then become like the editor in chief, and I would edit other people's content. And it became, okay, now I'm responsible not just for my own work, but for other people's work. And I needed to go through and edit it. And there were so many things that I learned just through, having to jump on Google and being like, what's the correct grammatical way to say this? And did this person do it right or wrong? And even other people teaching me things when I was saying, hey, we just like it when you do it this way. And they were like, actually, AP style likes you to do it this way. And I was like, okay, I guess that's right. That's, I'm not gonna argue on that. If you teach me something, then that works for me. And, I'm glad that I can, I'm glad that I can learn something from you and, take that into, my knowledge base and stuff. So there was a lot of great experience that kind of came out of that. And thankfully, I feel like I became, just more well-rounded and gained a better understanding of how to write and how to podcast and everything like that. I would take the podcast that I recorded, and I think I recorded 200 episodes. It probably had about 2 listens over the course of those 200 episodes total, but I would take those episodes and I would put it into usually Audacity, and I would go through and edit out every time I said or I said any sort of thing like that. If I said or anything, I would just go through and edit those out. And it probably took 2 hours to do all that. And it was probably unnecessary, but I think it also helped me be first conscious of trying to avoid saying that because I was creating more work for myself. And I don't think it was a huge deal. Like I said, I don't think anyone would have cared a ton if they listened and heard all those filler words in there and everything like that. But I think that it was just something that I recognized I needed to maybe avoid saying at that early stage. And I think that it was kind of helpful in that it didn't matter necessarily how good the content was. It just mattered that I was getting the reps and learning something. And I think that that's what that process maybe helped me with.
Attention to detail, everything in this business, right? And it was fantastic to hear you were thinking about that even before you came to us and heard all of us pound that into your head 18 million times. You guys grew a pretty large audience. I was looking at the numbers just before we came on, 30,000 followers still on Twitter on Guy Boston Sports, 62.4 thousand subscribers on YouTube. So you were kind of at the ground floor of building this. How did you figure out how to build a target audience and cater to the people who eventually became all these subscribers and followers?
I think that one of the things that was a tough balancing act was, especially being based out of the Boston, New England area, there was a big desire to not be like Barstool from me. I think that other people maybe felt differently, and there was always kind of a back and forth about that of, how we're building this and how we want to be portrayed. There doesn't really need to be another, Barstool. They do their thing and that's great and they're successful at it, but I don't think anybody needs there to be another one. You need to be something unique that people want. So I think that I was focused on that a lot, and I just tried to make content, I think, that was similar to Bleacher Report in a way. That's what I kind of tried to create, but just more focused on a specific area. Bleacher Report, you'll see they post all these, especially on Twitter and stuff, they'll post all these highlights, and they will post, statistics and big like questions like, oh, should this trade happen between, these two teams and XYZ. And I tried to kind of focus on, okay, let's focus that more on a Boston sort of way. So that's what I kind of tried to do to start. And I definitely took inspiration from the writing standpoint from places like The Ringer. That was a big place that I really like to follow, and they still have some really amazing writers there that write really thoughtful pieces. So I think that was sort of what I was focused on at the time. And I was just trying to do something a little bit different and just create content that I liked, that I know I would want to consume. And it was just interesting to see, people file in and the interest from that. It wasn't always positive, certainly. I remember at one point that, one of the people at our site was trying to like break a story and get, some low level sources during like a certain, I think like NBA free agency. And it got picked up by some bigger network or something, and they were talking about it. And someone had said, like, don't pay attention to them. Like, they're just like they're like the Onion for Boston sports. And I was like, okay, not the best comparison that you might want to get as someone trying to do something legitimate. But those types of comments will happen, especially when you're trying to do things like that. And so I think that it was a good experience, especially from the standpoint of getting that attention early on, to understand how to handle attention in the future and how to kind of make sure that you're just reacting to it in the right way, and you're not taking it in as something it's not. And you're just more maybe grounded. Like when I first got to Full Sail, and I think that, the former intro to sportscasting instructor Jackie Bates would say the same. I know she said the same to me, that I was a little cocky maybe when I first got to Full Sail, and maybe even when I left still. But I think that she recognized that I needed maybe a little more humbling, and I think that she was right. I think that I needed to come back down to earth a little bit, and I hope that I have. Maybe I still haven't. Maybe other people would say differently, but I think that that's something that I still value now, and I think it's important, is just taking that all in. And I think the attention I got there helped me maybe jumpstart that process of not being 3 years into my career and having to have those times where I kind of grow more into what I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to handle those types of things.
I remember your story with the humble necklace that you and Christine Wynn like to tell as well. We don't need to get into that, but that was pretty funny also. But I do remember you sharing with me that, while you were in high school in New Hampshire, you weren't quite sure what your path was, right? It wasn't certain. And then you found this, and then you found Full Sail. How much did your confidence build as you got into doing more of the work?
I think that I'm not sure. I feel like I feel like my confidence definitely continued to rise as again, just similar to what I was saying about the Boston sports media. I think it rose as I started to kind of take in and consume the content that other talented people at Full Sail would put together. Like I think that I had the huge benefit of obviously coming to campus when I did and getting the experience that I got just with Justin Velasquez, who was, I think, still like one of the most talented people that came through the school. And one of the special things about him was that he did I mean, I don't know if you'd probably be more qualified to say this than I would, but it felt like he did everything technically perfectly. It wasn't just that he was good on camera, it was that he was impeccable about how he put his things together. And I think that was something that really was valuable to me, and just watching and understanding, okay, this is, maybe not how you put together the perfect show, but how you put together pretty close to the perfect show in terms of how you're supposed to put things together. And because I was there when I was, and there weren't a lot of people there, I got to even, do the one of the final assignments of doing the debate with him. And as just 5 months into the program or whatever I was at that point, just such a early stage. And that was something that I don't know, it probably will never happen again at Full Sail the way that things are now and how big the classes are and everything like that. It certainly could, but I would think that it's probably unlikely since things are just growing and there's not hope, fingers crossed and knock on wood, not COVID going on anymore as much and everything like that. So I think that that's what probably helped my confidence the most, was seeing how other people did it, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, and then knowing once I got there, okay, I know how to do this. I know what this is supposed to look like. I know how to put this together, and I know how to make it good.
That's KJ Doyle, former president and chief editor and social media manager at Guy Boston Sports. Before we get into the Full Sail stuff, which we will do in just a moment, KJ, I did want to ask you about one thing that you brought up to me while you were at Full Sail, and it was this post that you had on social media, which you said, oh, this is the one that everybody likes. I even got him to comment on it. You had this post about Ben Simmons, and it was kind of like a joke post. It was like a funny thing that you did. But can you share the story behind that and how well that was received?
Well, it was interesting. And when I talk about sort of receiving attention, that's one of the first instances where I feel like I was able to grow and sort of react properly to that attention and learn how to deal with it. And it was the new NBA 2K had come out, and for years there was always this joke about Kobe Bryant, that when you played in Kobe Bryant in 2K, that all the buttons just turned into shoot buttons. You could all you could do with Kobe was shoot, because he wouldn't pass. The pass button doesn't work with Kobe Bryant. So that was always the joke for years. And the new 2K was coming out, and I remember I was just in my driveway and I was just shooting around, and somehow I think I was trying to think of, okay, what would a fun thing to post about the new 2K be? Like, what would a funny thing to post about it be? And I was just shooting around, and I think I even, just sort of pump faked once and just thought about it and said, what if you just couldn't shoot with Ben Simmons? What if the shoot button wouldn't work with Ben Simmons? And I thought that was funny, because obviously there was the joke about him that he wouldn't shoot a three. So I said it would be so funny if, in the new 2K, you were behind the 3-point line, it wouldn't let the shoot button wouldn't work if you were behind the 3-point line with Ben Simmons. So I thought that would be a funny joke. So I ended up posting it. And there was a huge also joke about the fact that I forget who it was. I think it was some spouse of a Sixers executive or something like that. Or someone had said that it went viral. It was, someone said, shoot a three, you coward. And it is like months ago. So that was something that had gone viral. So you can also edit the people's names in 2K. So I thought it'd be a fun wrinkle to the joke to add an extra layer to it, just to change his last name to Coward. in the in 2K, which isn't the nicest thing to do, but it's a funny thing to do. So I put that in there, and then I go, I film it, and I'm like, it doesn't look great. It looks like a little shoddy video, and I'm like, all right, here it is, the first official footage, the first reveal of the footage of Ben Simmons in the newest 2K. Let's shoot a 3 with them. And I was like, the square button's not working. What's going on here? And the way I set that all up was I literally just recorded a video of me just dribbling around with Ben Simmons at first. So I really wasn't doing anything. And then I went back and played that video and recorded that video and acted like I was actively playing, even though I wasn't. It was just a recording. So I had this whole elaborate setup for it. And I can't shoot a 3, and then I zoom in, and oh my gosh, the 2K named him Coward. Can you believe they did that? And so I went through this whole charade and posted it, and I certainly thought it was funny, and it started blowing up, and it got a lot of likes. And then ironically, once it was at about 6,000 likes or something, one of my old classmates that I wasn't even that close with, he tagged Ben Simmons in it. And I think he was the first person to even think to do that. And I didn't think much of it until like an hour later. And I don't know if that's why Ben Simmons saw it or not, but about an hour later, I got a warranted shot back from Ben Simmons that says like, never hit a 3 greater than have your facial hair. So I'd rather never hit a 3 than have your facial hair. So he, threw it back at me, and that kind of started that whole thing, and it kind of blew up a little more. And I ended up getting just hundreds of Sixers fans just in my mentions, just saying all sorts of abhorrent things to me. And I started to realize pretty quickly that it was just something I needed to ignore. Like, I had a lot of people saying some pretty visceral things to me. I had a lot of people in my DMs, not just for that day or that week, but like months. People would come back and continuously DM me. And I have a whole, slew of DMs from one guy that I could read who just came back every month and kept calling me certain things and whatever. So, I got those, and people from my family would come to me, like my sisters, and they would, I think at one point my sister responded to 1 or 2 of them, and I was like, don't respond to these people. I was like, it really, doesn't matter. And I think that it was maybe something from Colin Cowherd that popped into my head at that time, which was somewhat helpful, which was, he said that his mom would watch a show all the time. And I think at one point his mom went on the internet and saw what people were saying about Colin Cowherd, which, if people don't know, some people don't like Colin Cowherd. And she was reading this as a mother and just so hurt by it. And she went to Colin and said, I can't believe this. People hate you. And he said back to his mom, that's okay. I'd rather people hate me than nothing me. I would rather people hate me than feel nothing towards me. If people hate you, that means you're at least giving them some sort of emotion to have towards you, and that at least they feel something towards you. At least that means they're watching. And I think I took that with me at that time, and it was something that I held with me and said, as long as I'm getting views and I'm not doing anything so horrible that is totally obscene, then that's okay, and that's all right now, and that can help me in the future. So I think that that's how I initially learned to receive criticism and react to it properly.
Yeah, and that's so many lessons you can take from there, right? The positives, the negatives of posting something on social media, the etiquette. Sometimes there is no etiquette. Lots going on there, but a great experience for you to have early in your career to kind of learn all those different things that came with that particular post. And hey, then you end up at Full Sail. What brought you to us?
I think it was just continuously hearing the ads on the Bill Simmons podcast and seeing the ads on YouTube and things like this. And I knew I wanted to go to school. I was working at a department store at the time, and I had still been doing my thing at Guy Boston Sports, and I was saving up a little money, and I was trying to apply a few places, but I wasn't hearing back, and I knew people probably weren't taking me seriously without a college degree. So I knew I needed one, but it was just about finding the right place to go. And I started to show some interest in Full Sail, and then got some calls from some representatives at Full Sail, and things started to get rolling towards me going there. And I just knew that a sports focused program was going to most closely align with what I really wanted to do. So being able to get into that and do that was it was a special type of program. There's not a lot of programs across the country that are just like, hey, this is a sports program, this is what this is for. And being that that was 100% what I knew I wanted to do, it was an obvious sort of fit. So I came, and obviously at that time I was doing more writing, and I think I was a little surprised at first that it was so much on air stuff, and somewhat stupidly on my part sort of caught me off guard, and I was a little nervous about it. But then as things went on, I started to realize that I was okay at this too, and this was something I could also do. And I started to have some success with it, and that was something that I realized that I might be able to do. I might be okay at, and it wasn't. It was a path that I would be able to take, and things kind of just took off from there.
I'm glad you brought up the writing because you're a good writer, not only in the broadcast style, which we teach you, but also in the more online print style. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people as they enter the industry, because a lot of these jobs, you have to do both. You have to go on the air and present, then you got to go back and write a web story. And then oftentimes you got to do social media posts as well. What advice do you have to young broadcasters coming through our program that go into the industry and need to meet all of those needs for wherever you work?
I think the best thing that you can do is teach yourself how to do it. That's what I did. And I really had the honor of being able to talk to an ESPN editor at one point during the course of my time at Full Sail and show them some of my writing. And they may have just been lying to me and trying to make me feel good, but they said, your writing is really good. It's more impressive than some of the people I even edited at ESPN for a long time. And that was obviously really high praise, and I really appreciated that. Like I said, she might have just been making it up, but she did say it, so I felt some sort of gratitude in her saying that. And what she was really impressed by was that I was just kind of able to self-teach myself. And I shouldn't say you don't need professional training, because it certainly would help. It certainly would help to get your writing critiqued by someone that had done it for a long time, for a year or however long that would be. But there's all this information online. There's so many resources now to be able to teach yourself how to do anything. If you want to learn Spanish, you can just download an app on your phone now and just do Duolingo every day, and now by the end of it, you'll start to know a little Spanish. So there are so many ways that you can teach yourself how to do something. And I think that the idea of being able to go online and do what I did and look up, okay, what's the correct grammatical way to do this? How do I write this perfectly? What's the right way to phrase this? Consume other articles of professionals in the industry, read theirs, see how they write, pay attention to specific details in that. I think that's what's so valuable about the resources that are available now in that regard. And I think that there is the ability to do that and consume that information, and then you be able to utilize it in a way that makes your writing at the very least better. I can't promise that you're going to be a Nobel Prize winning or Pulitzer Prize winning writer if you do all those things, but I can promise that it'll make you better.
How are you able to connect with your audiences through your writing?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I did or not.
What are your goals when you write in terms of how to connect?
I think that some of the things that are my goals when I write is you want to make sure you're informing people. You want to make sure you have information in there that is informing someone and gives them a reason to read beyond anything else. The baseline should be that they are learning something from reading your article. And I think that's the first thing. And then if you're trying to make a point, if you're trying to convince them of something, it's okay, how can you argue that point in a way that makes sense? How can you use that information to support your argument? And I think the things that, you know, I tried to do to connect with people was I tried not to make it too loose. I didn't want to be too, you know, too informal of a writer, because I felt like I wanted to have some formality and I wanted to have some, you know, professional feel. But you also want to do that while also connecting well with the audience and making the connection. I think just by trying to portray some level of humanness in your writing, some level of personality. And I think that, you know, a lot of great writers, when it's similar to what you talk about when someone's talking on air. A lot of great writers, you read their article and it feels like a conversation, even though they're the only ones talking, but it feels like they make it feel that way. And I think that what I did, and one of the mindsets that I have that helps me in that regard, is I just think back to those conversations I had with my grandmother and the way that we talk and the way that we communicate. And just that thought, even just being in my head during the periods of time when I'm writing, I think helps make it feel more personal. Even if it's not something I'm thinking of consciously, it's something that I think can come out and people notice some things there, even if they don't know exactly what it is.
That's KJ Doyle. He's approaching his 2-year anniversary at KFTA in Amarillo, Texas. KJ, I think the first time I ever saw you, it wasn't in person, it was through a Zoom session when Dan Patrick was doing a feedback session, and this was early on in your time. You came to us during the COVID era, if we want to call it that, but eventually, not too long after that, you were able to jump in on campus. And if there's one thing that I can always say about KJ is KJ was always around, and he was always in the studio. He was always trying to do extra stuff. How did diving into the studio make your experience better as a student?
You know, I think it was some of the things that I said, especially with Justin Velasquez. I mean, just seeing talented people work that I otherwise wouldn't have. If I didn't come to campus when I did, I never would have seen Justin Velasquez. If I never volunteered, I never would have seen Ellie Davis, you know, do her stuff, or Nolan Thompson do his stuff, or Wyatt Wells. There's so many talented people. If I never go to campus, other than seeing the clips that, you know, you might play in your class, or that you know, someone else like Radcliffe or, you know, any of the other instructors would play, I would never see these people. And even if I would see a snippet, a 1-minute snippet of what they did on air, I would never see what happened on behind the scenes and what happened in the other takes and how they overcame that and how they were approaching the show to make sure that it was good, how they were acting leading up to it, how they were making sure that all their ducks were in a row, making sure they had their scripts ready, they had everything ready, they were acting in a way that was professional. So there are so many things that go into being good and having a good performance that happen before the camera starts rolling. And I think that I wouldn't have been able to understand those things in the way that I had I not been there. And I think I just wanted to be there for several reasons. I mean, one was there wasn't much else to do during that time. It was obviously a time of, you know, isolation. So I think people were, at least I was, eager to get back on campus and get that experience. I think that I was eager to be around people and meet people and make new friendships. And there were so many people that I was just excited to go hang out with in the studio. I was excited to be in the studio with Scott Kirk. I was excited to be in the studio with Brandon Daniels, Alfonso McCree. I was just excited to see those guys, you know, whatever we were doing. I was excited to be there and hang out with them and be around them. And I think that was a huge part of it. And I also think it was just about being passionate about doing this for a career. I had done, like I said, so much work at Guy Boston Sports without being compensated, really. You know, I didn't feel as though it was something that was that much different. I just wanted to go in and work and, you know, see how it helped me make it in my career. So I think that that's what was really cool, and something that I really appreciated in terms of, just in terms of being able to be there and be in person for that.
You could see how those friendships helped you and everybody else that was part of it. You guys had such growth through those friendships, and it challenged you to be better. One thing that we always say every month in my class, the first day, is be memorable. That's the goal. And you were certainly memorable in all the work that you did for me and many other classes. How were you able to accomplish meeting that goal?
I think that the way I was able to accomplish meeting that goal was that I never really thought about it. I never really, I mean, I suppose I did. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I feel like it was just never about being memorable. Specific things I did were never to be memorable so much. The main motivations behind them were I wanted to connect with these people. I liked these people. I wanted to be friends with them. I wanted to form friendships. And I think that's something I even talk about when people talk about networking. How do you network? Well, networking is a big fancy word and a big corporate word. But what it really comes down to is just being friendly and being friends with people and making friendships. And I think making friendships is what I like to say, instead of making connections. You shouldn't be making connections just to make connections. You should be making friendships, and you should be making relationships with people. And so I think that that's mostly what it was about for me. It was just my passion for doing what I was doing and liking the people I was around. And I think that what you mostly find is that people that are memorable are people that people like to remember. if and people that had a big impact one way or another on the people around them. And I think that it was something that I really cared about. I just really care about other people and trying to connect with them in sort of any way possible. So I think that that was something that was kind of the main motivator behind that. And if I am or was that memorable, I think the majority of that memory that people have is from people that I did connect with and that I am really close with even now.
What were you most proud about in terms of your growth as both a broadcaster and a human being during your time with us?
I think what I was most proud of was how much I maybe matured at Full Sail. I think, and I've talked about it before, when I was in high school, I was going through a lot. I had a lot going on. I mentioned my grandmother at the beginning. She had passed away right before I started high school. And my best friend for the first grade, he had to stay back in 8th grade because his grades were fine. His parents just felt like he was a little too young. They didn't want him going to high school just yet. And all of these things were happening at the same time. And there were other things that were going on in my life and with my family and with my relationships. And I kind of just fell apart, and I really ended up kind of sheltering myself in and shutting down. And it resulted in me doing very poorly in high school. By the time I got into high school, I had a 0.8 GPA, and I had to test out of high school and take a GED equivalent. I think it was called the LSAT, which I ended up taking. And or no, it wasn't called the LSAT. I don't know what it was called, but it was a GED equivalent. And I just did that, and that's how I got through high school. And when I got to Full Sail, I was very motivated by avenging that failure and trying to make sure that I proved that I was capable of succeeding in my education. And I remember before I came to Full Sail, about a month before, I ended up going to my grandmother's gravesite, and we have a little bench there with her last name carved on it. And I just sat down on the bench, and in my head, I just decided, okay, even if she's not here, even if she can't talk to me, I'm just going to make up what I think she would say. And I'm just going to kind of have a conversation with myself, trying to picture what she would tell me right now. And I was kind of talking and saying that, I felt like in school, I was smart. I was an intelligent person. If I applied myself, I could have done well. I just didn't. And I remember just, her saying back to me in my head that, you can believe that and you could stay in this town forever and, not go on to do anything and tell people that until the day you die and just say that I could have done this, I could have done that, I was smart enough to. Or you can prove it. You can go down there and go to school and go to college and you can prove it. And those are the two options. You can either say it and hope people can believe you and they probably won't, or you can prove it. And that's when kind of prove it became my motto. And the thing that I was most motivated by was that I need to prove to everybody that this is what I was capable of. And so I turned that 0.8 GPA in high school to a 3.93 GPA at Full Sail and a valedictorian win in, the class of, 6 people that we had. And it was something that I worked really hard for. I knew every day at a certain point, I knew that I just didn't want to succeed. I wanted to just be the best. I wanted to be as good as I could be. I wanted that valedictorian. I wanted to leave no doubt that, yeah, I did do this. I came here and I got valedictorian of this. I didn't just graduate. I didn't just, pass. I wanted to make sure that I proved without a doubt that I could do this. And, I was really proud once it got to the end of that I was able to do that. And it was something that was really important to me. And by 3 weeks, I beat my sister to graduation, even though I started after her. Shout out to the Full Sail expedited track, because that'll have me to go in 20 months and beat her to graduation by 3 weeks and be my mom's first kid to graduate college.
Wow.
So that was an added benefit.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because there's a speech that you gave to the class in your final class with us, and you talk about how quickly people graduate from our program, much quicker than other universities. And I still play that speech to this day on the final day, and it's something for everybody to take in and appreciate. During that final month, you had what I'm sure was kind of the highest of highs and in some ways the lowest of lows, when the San Francisco 49ers had a digital position open and you made a good run at it. You got an interview, you didn't ultimately get it, but what did you take from going through that experience so close to graduation?
It's still to this day the most exciting job interview that I've had, the most excited I've been. I remember when I got the call back that I was getting the interview, I was shaking. I just couldn't believe that I was getting this interview. And I ended up going to, it was during spring break that this process was really happening. And the job might've been posted for like a day. I don't think it was up very long. And I just had scrolled through and seen it and I applied to it. And I think I initially heard back and they wanted 5 writing samples to see what my writing ability was like. And again, this was spring break. I remember my girlfriend and her dad were there and they wanted to go to Disney World and they were planning, on going there. And I maybe selfishly made them wait. And I was like, hold on. And I didn't just want to send, we chronicled my time at Guy Boston Sports. I'd written hundreds of articles there. I didn't want to just send in one of the articles that I did there. I think maybe a couple of the 5 were articles that I wrote there, but I didn't want to send in 5 articles from Guy Boston Sports. So I made the effort to write 3 additional articles on current 49ers things going on, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they just signed Travarius Ward at that time. So I was trying to add to that to show them like, hey, he just wrote these things. And it's not as if he just posted them on his site about Boston sports. So this is work that he just did for this position. And I think that's what helped me get the interview, along with the things I did. And then when I was at Full Sail during your class, one of my assignments, I just made it a pure 49ers report and I sent it into them. And I had hoped that that would help. And the main issue, along with my lack of experience at that time, was that the interview just did not go well. And I think that it was just, I was just nervous. I think I was acting in a way that wasn't myself. Um, I got some advice from somebody who said, you're when you talk to them, make sure that you're not grateful to be there. You're not like feeling like this is an honor to just be interviewed, because you need to act like you deserve this interview. That you don't want to make them think that you aren't deserving of this interview. You don't want to, put that thought in their head, which made some sense, I suppose. And as someone who was experienced as they were, I figured that was advice that I should heed in some regard. And I remember that I ended up I obviously didn't get it. I emailed the person that I had talked to, and said, are you guys still considering me? And they had said no. And I had just emailed back and said that when I just said, I was like, just to be honest, this is my first big interview. I was wondering if you would have any feedback for me, or you would have any advice for future interviews. And I remember they called me, and it was well after their shift had ended. They were not working for the day anymore, but they still called me and said that they kind of felt for me that it was my first big interview, and they felt they wanted to help me. They wanted to make me not feel as bad as I did in that moment. And they said that I kind of told them about the advice I had received, and they said that I came across a little cocky in the interview and a little arrogant, and that it sounded like I got some bad advice. And they said that we kept talking, and they said, man, if you sound so much more personable now, maybe if this is how it went, it would have been different. And they said, and then they kind of backtracked and said, well, I guess it was this person that really made the final decision, so maybe not. But either way, she also told me a story about her first interview. And she said that her first interview was with Sony Music. And the first question the interviewer asked her was, so who's your favorite Sony Music artist? And she said, well, I don't know. I don't really have a favorite Sony Music artist. I don't know any Sony Music artists. And the interviewer said, okay, well, this interview's over. And it was all because she didn't know a Sony Music artist at that moment. And she realized after the fact, and looking it up, that she could have said anybody, like Michael Jackson, Beyonce. She could have said pretty much anybody, and they probably would have been a Sony Music artist. But because she wasn't prepared for that, it cost her the interview, which is a really tough first interview experience to have. Is a really heartbreaking first interview experience to have, especially if you had your heart set on that job. And I think what it taught me was, or what she was trying to portray there, was that those things happen. That's just something that happens over the course of an interview. You're going to have something that didn't go well, especially in your first interview experience. And it's just all about learning for the next time. Things aren't going to go well always, even for jobs you really want. And that's okay. And you just learn from it and you move forward.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect way to look at it. First of all, super excellent job of personalizing everything to the job that got you the opportunity. A lot of the process you did as well as you could do, KJ. But then you learn from what didn't go well. Okay, be more prepared for the interview. I think you got good advice in the sense that you need to be confident and portray confidence and not undersell yourself. But there is a fine line between confidence and arrogance. So you just got to find that genuine, confident feel, and then be as prepared as you can for the interview. And yeah, sometimes something like that can throw you off. But I thought overall you handled that opportunity really well. And you learn from what didn't go well. And guess what? You made it. You're working. You're a sports director. What's it like living the dream right now?
Yeah, and the person that gave me that advice, I think they had, I don't want to say too much specific. They had worked for an NFL team before, and they were,
Yeah.
Gus had helped me connect with them. And I think it was good advice from their standpoint, but different things work for different people, and I think that's what it was really came down to. And yeah, I just kept applying from that point on, and just kept searching, and I ended up going back home and working for a station close to home that I
Well,
didn't have to sign a
let's touch
lease.
on that for just a second. So,
Yeah.
you were ready to work, right? You didn't really want to wait around too long. You got a job, you got experience, you knew that it might be a stepping stone, but
Yeah.
what did you take from your time as a producer in Portland, Maine?
I think that I just the real thing was, it was time to pay off my loans. It was time to pay off my credit cards. I budgeted out a specific amount for me to get through college. And I was like, okay, I need to make money now. And so it worked out that I got this job in Maine, and they were willing to work with me on, hey, I do want to eventually go into sports, just so you know that. They were open to that because they really needed the producer help. And I didn't have to sign a lease, I didn't have to sign a contract. So it made a lot of sense from those standpoints. And learning to produce first is really helpful, because you get in and there are all these technical processes with ENPS and iNews and these elements that are important to know and important to learn. And I think that learning that format and learning how to put those things together, how to time things out, how to work in a newsroom, what a newsroom is like, what the dynamics are like, all of that was valuable experience that helped me. And I remember at one point I was timing a show on the weekend, and I had two different out times, and I didn't know which one to go with. And I ended up going with the wrong one, and I produced the show 3 minutes light. And Master Control, and we were ending the show because I thought that was what our out time was. And Master Control just started. They weren't in my headset, but they were in the director's headset, and they were screaming like, "What are you guys doing?" Whatever. They ended up throwing up an infomercial, and I'm sure no one watching was too much the wiser. But I was mortified. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get fired or something." And it was just an experience that certainly helped. And you're gonna have those incidents throughout the course of your career where something goes wrong and something is bad, and you just have to recover from that. And I think that one of the things about that experience that just helped me recently was March Madness was going on, and our producer for the show was over 2 minutes under. And I was like, during the show, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. And so I went up and talked to her, and I was like, hey, what's going on here? You're 2 minutes under. Do you need me to fill some time? And she said, I don't know what happened. We just had a 15-minute A block. I don't know why we're 2 minutes under. And so I said, okay, that seems a little weird. So I had to check with someone in Master Control who was just kind of new and say, hey, what's the out time? And they said, well, Colbert starts at this time. And I'm like, okay, but what time do we need to be out? And so they had communicated wrong about the out time. So I came in and, tried to help and make sure, hey, this is the actual out time. This is what it's supposed to be. And I think if I hadn't have gone through that experience as a producer myself, I wouldn't have been able to help in that scenario. And I think that's just one instance where it helped me help someone else. And that was pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah, and it seems like all these different instances and lessons and all that is contributing to your success now. What's life like as a sports director?
It's challenging. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of things that go into it that are stressful. I mean, I remember when I first got there, I had done so much at Full Sail, and I had talked with them about how things were going a few months in, and I was like, what are things I can improve on? And they said, well, the on-air stuff is good. It's just all the other stuff. And I was like, well, what is all the other stuff? Like, what are we talking about? And I just didn't understand it at that point. And there were things you need to learn about planning content, organizing it for other people, making sure it's consumable for them understanding what's expected of them on a week-to-week basis. And those things, I think, really helped once I learned them. It took about a year to really get my footing and understand, okay, this is what it takes. I think working as a sports reporter first definitely would have helped, so I could see someone else do it first. But jumping into the deep end and jumping into the sharky waters in that regard, just right off the bat was just kind of that trial by fire type of thing. And it took a while to learn everything, but I think that in the long run, it will be valuable that I learned all this stuff now. And, I have that baseline of information at kind of an early point rather than, being a sports reporter for 5 years and then being a sports director. I don't think I would have minded doing it that way either, but I think that at the very least, there are positives that have come out of doing it so quickly.
Yeah, and I thought that you did a good job of trying to learn from others. Like you would reach out to people like me and other course directors who'd been through it and try to get advice. You reached out to, I know, numerous people who were in that position that were other graduates of our school. So it's tough. It's a lot to ask. And sometimes there's that growth that you still need to learn so much when you come out too. And it's not easy moving to a small town in the middle of nowhere compared to where you were. How did you handle the anxiety that comes with that? What advice do you have for people who might be in a similar situation for their first job?
I don't know if it's the best way to handle it. The way I handled it was just I started taking things one day, 1 week at a time. I started deciding, okay, I'm just gonna look at a week. Look at this week. This is what we need to do this week. Let me just focus on that. And I think that sort of helped slow things down for me a little bit. It started to help put things in a better perspective. So I'm not thinking, okay, what does this mean several months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road? It was like, let me just take it a week at a time. And I think that's when things started to improve for me and started to feel like a little more manageable than taking the daunting task of thinking about how things affect the next year or several years of your life.
I remember you called me pretty early on and you had this live shot and you were really excited about, hey, I'm going to do this live shot on this young woman who they call like the combination of LeBron James and Steph Curry, right? And I'm like, that's great. Say that on the air. Like, that'll be so good. But I know that with some of the challenges, there have been a lot of fun experiences for you already in less than 2 years there. What have been some of the highs of being able to do this job every day?
Well, certainly when the Sod Poodles won the Texas League Championship was fun. As a minor league team in a market like this, I think there's more interest than you would traditionally see in a minor league baseball team, and it's a little more important, a little more impactful. And seeing how the stands were packed for their games is really cool. And it's like covering something in between a major league team and a minor league team because it just has that little bit more of importance. And I think that's why maybe the players are so motivated and the organization was so motivated to win a Texas League championship. And I believe they're second in several years here. So, it was really cool. I got to go down to San Antonio and follow them and talk to the Carey brothers, Stephen and Chris Carey. Chris Carey, now the play-by-play voice for the Oakland Athletics and for their radio team. And just getting to talk with them and chat with them down in San Antonio while we were waiting for these games to start and just be around the ballpark for that extended period of time and get those experiences where it's what you really want, I feel like, or at least I really want as someone covering sports, just spend all day at the ballpark. I mean, that's the dream of what the job is. You spend all day just at the game. And that was really cool. And the idea of getting to be around some great future MLB stars who were on that team and be on the field and talk to those players and talk to the managers and everything like that is awesome and was so cool and so awesome. And I think that, some of the other experiences have just been connecting with some really special high school athletes that those kids are just, awesome. They're great kids and great to talk to them. Talking to, KJ Thomas, who is going to UTEP next year, is a great basketball player for one of our high schools, and just seeing just how great of a young man he is and how great of a basketball player he is, and interacting with those people and making those connections and giving them something and their family something that they can look back on in 10 years and see this article posted about their son or themselves or whoever, and get to look back on those moments and getting to memorialize them in a way, or just put them in I don't want to say put them in stone, but put them somewhere where they can remember them forever. So I think that was something that I really liked and really liked to get to know those guys. And just finding some some great stories along the way, and covering the Elite Eight bound WT basketball team, one of the best Division II programs in the country. And I think that's what's been cool about it is, here there's some lower level things, it's a Division II basketball. It is, Division II athletics. It's AA baseball, minor league baseball, but they have an extra layer of importance because that's what's going on here. And that's what people flock to. And that means that they're usually the best or among the best. And the Soft Eagles are one of the best minor league organizations in the league. And the WT Athletics are the best, across a number of sports, one of the best Division II programs in the country. And they're going to the Elite Eight in basketball, and they back-to-back national championship appearances in volleyball. So those have been some of the really cool things, and just being on the court and seeing the elation of winning the Sweet 16 game and getting to do that, a week ago. And it's just been fun to connect and see some of those really cool things, even if they are it's not the NBA finals and it's not the, NCAA championship for basketball and the traditional March Madness, but they mean a lot to a lot of people in this area. And I think that you can feel that.
And we were talking about growth earlier. That's what I love hearing you say all that, because I know that, big time sports were so important to you going there. And now you've realized how to meet your target audience, there's a lot of really good stories in the community. So props to you for that. All right. Final big question. What are your future dreams within this business?
I'm still not 100% sure. I don't know. I feel like that's changed a lot. I mean, the dream would certainly be to, have the 49ers call me back and say, hey, you know what? Actually, we have the position open again, and, whatever. But I think, working for a team would always be a dream of mine. Just getting to cover a team on a day-to-day basis, just be around, one group of players and kind of get to follow them perennially would be awesome. But, I think that a lot of that, we'll see what the future holds. I think that I'm just more excited about the prospect of just continuing along with my life and finding the things that I want to go along with my job. I think that once I got past, the prove it element of it, I don't feel that as much anymore. It's just, and some people could argue I should or I could, but I don't have that feeling as much anymore. I just feel like, okay, now I've done it and I've made it there. What's next? And it's kind of that search of what's the next thing that's going to drive me. And I think that I'm still figuring that out, and I'm still figuring out how I want the rest of my life to go. So I'm trying again to, not look too far ahead sometimes, because it can consume you a little bit too much. So I'm just kind of taking things slow and taking things as they come, and wherever the next path opens up, I hope I'll be ready for it.
I think you will be, because you have the right mindset of how to approach that. That is a great mindset to have. All right, we like to end these with what I call the dream sequence. 3 quick questions. You give me what's on the top of your head, and this should be fun. All right, this is kind of a random one. Dream speaking engagement. If you could be the guest speaker anywhere, what would you want that to be?
I guess I'd have to pick, I know, it's go big or go home. I think, can I just say the Oscars? Like if I could just host the Oscars, or even get just one to introduce one of the awards, just do a funny bit at the Oscars. Those are some of the most fun thing to watch, even like any of those award shows, the Golden Globes or whatever, just the people getting up on stage doing a funny bit. I mean, I feel like those are some of the funniest things that you just get to see actors do, is just spur of the moment. Even just, okay, maybe who knows how long they have to think about it, a day or 2 days. Okay, what should we do? What should we do when we're up there? What would be funny? And I guess if I could do anything and speak at anything, maybe to tie it into sports, maybe I could say the ESPYs. But
right,
something
we'll
like
get
that.
We'll get you Hanky Q Hazelton to design your tux for either one of those, right? So, all right, quick. Dream Celtics starting 5.
I can pick just my personal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm going Rajon Rondo at point guard, and I suppose I have to take Paul Pierce in there as well, as one of my favorites. I'll take Jason Tatum at the 4. I will take Bill Russell at the 5. And at the shooting guard, it's a little harder. I suppose I'll just take Jaylen Brown. The Celtics,
Okay.
they've had some great shooting guards. It's definitely a more modern list. I had to give Bill Russell the love. And I mean,
No, that's good. We're good. We
maybe I
got
have
our
to
5.
sneak Larry Bird in there and put Paul Pierce at the 2.
Larry Bird as your 6th man. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, I know you were always cool about bringing in donuts to class. Dream if they're going to make a KJ Doyle donut, what would be on it?
Oh gosh. That's I think, I'll just say one thing. I think there'd have to be coconut on there somewhere. I'm a sucker for a good Dunkin' Donuts coconut, shaved coconut donut. So I don't know where they'd go with it. I would just find a great chef and say, hey, Kitchen Nightmares style or whatever the Gordon Ramsay contest shows are, just Master Chef, find a way to fit coconut into this donut. And maybe I could just have a bunch of people do that and then I'd pick the best.
Okay. Coconut's always good. Any final advice you have for anyone who's watching?
Just have fun, enjoy it. I think that, a lot of people will tell you that Full Sail isn't a traditional college experience. It's not like going to, some big giant school like Michigan or, Alabama or wherever. But I think a lot of people hear that and even, and it is true, but hear people say, and Gus and everybody talk that it's the beginning of your professional career. It's a job, and that's certainly true, but it can also be true that you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to make the same friendships that you would make at any other college that you went to, and you're going to get the chance to form special relationships and special bonds, whether it be with your fellow classmates or your instructors. So just make sure you do that and you take advantage of that and you don't take that for granted and take that time for granted, because for as much as and as important as it is to treat it like a job, it's also important to understand that there is time to still have fun and enjoy the college experience. And you're still able to do that at Full Sail, even if it's not the traditional college experience. And I certainly did. And I certainly wouldn't wish that I went anywhere else for my college experience, because I met some amazing people and have some amazing friends out of there. And I don't think there's anywhere else where I would have made better friends than at Full Sail.
Well, we're glad you came to us, because it's been nothing but fun working with you and seeing your success. That's KJ Doyle. He's on a path to greatness and he's living his dream. Everybody else, keep on living your dream.